You're listening to the Chad Easty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons, 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and anywhere else inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening on this Wednesday, July 17th. Welcome into the program. Glad to have you with us today on the show. And oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Of course, we're gearing up for day 3 of the RNC convention. A lot of great speakers on tap for this evening, including J.D. Vance, who really this is going to be his first time introducing himself to a national audience. There are people who know who J.D. Vance is, a lot of people who do not know who he is. Maybe they've heard the name J.D. Vance, but he is a pretty a relative newcomer to the stage, and I don't think he spoke at the last RNC convention, and so he's going to be somebody who is introducing himself really for the first time to a lot of people, and he's got a very interesting story, a very interesting backstory to his life. And so I'm looking forward to the speech tonight, looking forward to hearing what he has to say. We will actually be joined at 5:35 by Jeremy Wallace. He's at the Houston Chronicle, and we're going to visit with him. He's at the RNC convention there in Milwaukee, and we'll visit with him about what he has seen, what he has heard, and just how the mood has been at the convention so far this week. So last night, a lot of great speeches from obviously Ted Cruz spoke last night. I thought Marco Rubio had a really, really good speech. I thought Ron DeSantis had a really good speech. I thought Nikki Haley did the job that she was needed to do. She went in and not everybody welcomed Nikki Haley at first. She had her detractors, but I think she kind of won the audience over, and she spoke to the crowd that she needed to speak to, which was not the never Trumper crowd, but the I don't know if I want to vote for Trump, that crowd. And there are still people out there that are like that. There are still people out there who they're just not quite sure if they want to vote for Donald Trump. They may not want to vote for Joe Biden. They may want to sit out the election, and we can't afford that, even though the electoral map is looking very good at this point for the Republicans. And I mean very, very good for the Republicans. You still don't want to take any chances. You want to get everybody out. You want to get all the Republicans out there to vote. And I thought Nikki Haley did a pretty good job last night at doing her part to try and unite the party. And then there were some other non-politicians who just had fantastic speeches. And so we'll get into that a little bit as well during the program today. Want to hear from you if you've been paying attention to the RNC convention. Were there any speeches that you enjoyed, any speeches that you did not enjoy? Well, have you been paying any attention whatsoever to the RNC? Want to hear from you today. You can text in at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. We also have the latest on the would-be assassin. More news coming out about that. The Secret Service doing a slight briefing with some lawmakers, but not good enough. And you have many Republicans who are calling on the head of the Secret Service to resign. She needs to, but I also think there need to be open hearings, open to the public, and where the American people hear exactly what went wrong. I see a lot of stories out there about how there are too many conspiracy theories. Too many conspiracy theories. Well, there's a lot that's messed up with this situation, and it's very hard for us to believe, I think, for the American people to believe that the Secret Service just screwed up that much. You either have to accept that the Secret Service completely dropped the ball. Well, I guess not completely, but as close to completely as you could get without a major tragedy. So, almost completely dropping the ball, or something else is involved here. So we'll get into that during the show today. Get your thoughts as well. We've also got the Democrats. They're sort of gearing up for their convention, and they've got a little bit of debate between how they're going to do this convention, and even if Joe Biden is going to be at the convention. We'll talk about that during the program today. Get your thoughts as well. We want to hear from you, as always, at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. And you can also give us a call as well at any time. 1-800-687-0790. The first voice you hear from when you dial in, Nick. Nick has said it looks as though Nick is having a good day. Nick, are you indeed having a good day?
I would agree with that.
Okay, good.
I'm halfway through my V8 plus energy, so
good.
We know that's a good day.
Yes,
a good day already. Well, actually, I was just looking. It's World Emoji Day.
Yes, it is.
World.
Yes.
Emoji Day. So, in fact, I heard someone a while ago, a couple days ago, talking about how when people text, it is more beneficial to add emojis or exclamation marks or something to your text, even if they are very brief, if they're one-word answers. Because through text, you can't read people's facial expressions. You can't. You all you see, obviously, is the words of what they're saying. So, if you text someone and you just say yes, they could take that a million different ways. Some people may not look too into it, but others may take that a million different ways.
Yeah.
Are they angry? Are they short with me because they're just saying yes?
Yeah.
You never know because in person you got a little smirk or you're like
or if you put like around. Sure. If someone asks you, hey, do you want to go to this place for dinner tonight? And you go, sure.
Right.
Well, that can be taken many different ways.
Yeah, it's like, well, never mind then. You clearly, you're not excited.
You don't want that place.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And so the people were saying that it's good to use to kind of spice your text messages up with some emojis, even if they're the most bland, your standard smiley face, something.
Yeah.
Just to show, that you're not angry, you're not being sarcastic, things like that. And that's something that I follow wholeheartedly. I always send, because I feel way too bad if I text someone and then there's just like this awkward air in the conversation. So I always have to, I have to try to break the ice a little bit with some emojis.
Hang on. Wait a minute.
Oh, boy.
Let me look at my text from you.
Well, you may not bring up a good example.
Yeah.
if I don't know. Okay, and well, that's the other thing, too.
Yeah, you haven't sent me any emojis at all.
You and I talking, though, is a little bit different. You know, if well, I don't want to, well...
Is it because we're not friends?
I was going to say, if a friend of mine texts me,
right?
It'll be a little different. Or if a stranger... let me rephrase that.
Just go ahead and get it all out there. It's fine. It's all good.
I'll rephrase it. If a stranger texts me...
Let's do this. Let's go ahead and all get it out there. Let's just... It's fine. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If a stranger texts me that I know,
yeah,
the first time texting, there we go.
A stranger that you know text you.
We know each other, but we're texting for the first time. I always either end with an exclamation mark, or some stupid emoji, because that's my whole point. Is I don't want it to be awkward. I don't want them to misconstrue anything that I'm saying. I just want them to know that, whatever my response is, that's fine. You know, it's lighthearted. That's okay. Things like that. Now, emails are another story. I did hear that's kind of a no-no, is in a more professional tone. You should not put...
really?
You should not put emojis in emails. Again, that varies. But if you're sending, an email to your boss about something that's going wrong and some fire that you're putting out, maybe... emojis aren't the best move there. Or if you're talking to a client through emails.
Sure.
That's kind of rough to fit in a quirky little crazy smiley face.
Yeah, you may not want to do that.
Yeah, you may not want to. But anyway, so World Emoji Day. That's something that since I just recently heard that. So I thought, hey, that's relevant. I do that. So I was just curious because I think people have mixed feelings about emojis.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
The younger generation probably likes using emojis a lot more than the older generation. Then again, the older generation, I do know some of the older generation, they really get into the emoji. They have a lot of fun with it. Sometimes to the extent not all the emojis that they're stringing together make sense.
Right. Or the ellipses. That's a big one. I know a lot of people within a certain age who like to end their texts with ... Very ominous, very unnerving. But to them, it's just the end of their thought.
Yeah.
Not to me.
Yeah.
No.
Very good. Okay, so there you go. That's now Nick has also promised, besides me finding out now that we're not friends, which that's a development. We'll take that. We'll deal with that during the show today. But Nick has promised very good music today. So he sent me a message on our Discord chat a little bit ago, right before the show, going, hang on, I don't want to hype this up too much. I don't want to hype it up too much. Got some good bumper music to break out today. Pretty stoked. It's the highlight of my day, honestly. So this is big. I mean, this is... you're setting the bar very high here. That this has been the highlight of your day, getting the music ready, and that you've been pretty stoked about it since before the show. We'll see what happens. 806-680-2790. When we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at kfyo.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Thursday edition Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show from Milwaukee. Donald Trump will be accepting officially the Republican nomination. We'll have Don Jr. on with us, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, and Buck, what in the world will we expect to see from Trump?
The big speech tonight, Donald Trump setting the agenda not just for the conclusion of the RNC and the rest of his campaign, but for many, the future of the country. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right. Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Yes, another texter did say it's National Hot Dog Day today. That is true. It's National Hot Dog Day. I feel like we've talked a lot about hot dogs lately. With the Independence Day weekend and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what else they're. I guess there are some places doing free hot dogs, though. So if you can score a free hot dog, hey, go for it. Why not? You can text in 806-680-2790. Let's see. Charlie weighing in on the text line with some emojis. Nick, hello, with the thumbs up. Great idea. Longtime listener, Charlie, with a couple of the sunglasses, smiley face emoji. That's going on. Let's see. Another texture. Not all do the words that Uncle Joe string together make sense, so I hate to blame the emojis. Maybe Joe's thinking of emojis when he's talking. You think that's it? You think he's trying to talk an emoji? That could be it. You never know. Another texture. The last time you were working totally alone to assassinate someone on a roof, a sloped roof. Remember that. Did you have your cell phone out next to you, knowing you didn't have a co-conspirator to talk to? Yeah. Again, there's a lot to the case that just doesn't make any sense. Mike Lee on X earlier today saying that the Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle needs to step down immediately. Mike Lee saying today's mostly information-free briefing only confirmed that. What little information she gave us was that what's deeply troubling and glaringly incomplete. At least three of us, Senator Blackburn, Senator Cruz, and me, had sought recognition, asked questions, and were in queue when they were arbitrarily cut the call short. The Secret Service agreed to give us this briefing. Normally, federal agencies that agree to brief us do their best to answer all of our questions, even if it takes a while. Never in my 13 years in the Senate have I seen a briefing end after only answering 4 questions. She does need to be fired. If she had any ethics at all, she would resign. But this administration, they're not going to get rid of her. Remember, Jill's a big fan. The only reason this woman is the head of the Secret Service is because Jill Biden really liked her. That's it. And this is the same administration. They don't get rid of people. They don't get rid of failures. Look at Joe. They're not getting rid of him. They're not getting rid of Kamala Harris. They're not getting rid of the Homeland Security Secretary. Anyone who's ever had anything to do with the border, they still have a job. Anyone who had anything to do with the evacuation or the leaving of Afghanistan, they still have a job. So again, anyone who is a complete failure at their job in the administration, they do not get fired. Doesn't happen. So there's no reason to think that this woman will be fired at all. The only way she will be fired is if Donald Trump is elected president. Really, that's it. That's the only way that she'll be fired. And then maybe after that, we'll start to get answers. But I have, and I was watching the interview last night that I think it was Hannity had with Don Jr. And you could tell Don Jr. He doesn't. He ain't buying the story. He's not buying the story from the FBI, from the Secret Service, not at all. And he doesn't believe that the full story will really ever come out. And listen, there is precedent for the full story never coming out. We still don't know the full story behind the transgender shooter. We still don't know the full story behind the Las Vegas shooter. We just kind of swept that one under the rug and looked the other way. There are a lot of things that we still don't have answers for when it comes to shootings, tragedies, big major events that happen in the United States. And people wonder why there are people asking questions. Well, you've got to ask questions. Otherwise, it goes away. When we come back, Jeremy Wallace with the Houston Chronicle. He'll join us here on the Chad Hasty Show.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network.
My name is Corporal Bradley Joseph Seitz.
Jerry Reed.
Kate Weber.
These are real veterans facing a real challenge.
I have PTSD.
And I have PTSD.
I have PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder can happen to anyone.
I was still in a war zone in my mind.
But treatment can turn your life around.
Treatment has really saved my life.
To learn about PTSD and how treatment can help you, call your local VA medical center or visit ptsd.va.gov.
Chance Wilcox lived his life with a kind heart, and anyone would tell you that. But I'll never forget the call that my only son, with so much life ahead of him, had been killed instantly by a distracted driver on her cell phone. The happiness we all had and enjoyed up until that time was gone in 1 second by a 100% preventable action.
Heads up, Texas. Using your phone behind the wheel can be deadly. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Don't you forget about Chad at Chad Hasty Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on your radio. Now back to the Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. Joining us on the phones right now, good friend of the program, Jeremy Wallace with the Houston Chronicle, who is embedded in Milwaukee at the RNC and has been, looks like he's been having a good time at the convention. Jeremy, how are you today?
Oh, it's great. I'm in the land of beer, cheese, and, all products dairy.
Nice.
It's been great.
That sounds pretty good. So I've been obviously following you on X, and you've been doing a lot of updates there in Milwaukee. What have you experienced? What have you seen just from this convention? I know you've been to a number of these conventions before. How do you compare this one to previous Republican conventions?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was expecting a lot more security. It's very secure here. It looks like a military, compound really in this for about a 5 or 6 square mile area. I was expecting more. Just because of what happened on Saturday, of course, the assassination attempt on former President Trump. I expected even more security presence, but it looks like they were ready anyhow. It's like they clearly had a plan in place. So there's a lot of aggressive security, which almost kind of fits in with the message that we're hearing from a lot of the speakers about restoring security in America under President Trump. Right? It's like it all kind of seems to be one big thing. So I've been kind of struck by that. And just the energy, the energy here is really, again, coming off of, Saturday, people are more resolved and more, into this than I've ever seen. You think about people who weren't always like the biggest Trump supporter, even with the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. It just feels like even those folks are throwing their support behind President Trump in ways that are like more aggressive. And one of the things you saw last night, where you had Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, all people who once ran against, Donald Trump, all saying they're with Donald Trump now. So I think that unifying message is getting pretty strong here.
Yeah. Tonight, I believe that's when the governor of Texas is supposed to address the crowd. Do you think the Texas delegation is looking forward to that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a big moment for Greg Abbott, right? Here's a guy who, because of a COVID, wasn't at the last convention, and the one before that in 2016, he had a family or had an injury during a family vacation and wasn't able to make it. So this is his first chance to be on this national stage where he can kind of really tell people who he is. So, I think this is going to be a big deal. He's going to be able to get a chance to really talk about the border issues that Trump wants to talk about in a way that no other governor obviously can. So I think this is a really good moment for him, and I think it'll be good for the rest of the nation to kind of see who he is, right? Yeah. He's been growing in stature, and if he has any ambitions to run national office at some point, he's going to make a hit here.
Yeah. Yeah. So while you've been at the RNC, have you been able to speak a lot to the Texas delegates? What are they thinking? What's kind of going through their minds the last couple of nights?
Yeah, it was interesting talking to some of the delegates. A lot of times when the convention's going on, I'm on the floor and I'm actually being able to, chat with, members of the delegation from Texas. And so I'm getting to see their responses right away. And it's funny, they all dress up in like a theme each night for the convention. So, last night they all had red shirts on and white cowboy hats, and they'd wave them in the air anytime they heard something they like. Yeah. But, well, on the ground, it's it was interesting, just talking to, I talked to a couple of them, and going back to, after what happened to Trump on on Saturday, they weren't going to let anything stop them from getting here. And I think, that was the interesting part to me. I talked to one delegate who told me he would have crawled over glass to get here. He didn't care how many travel problems he had. He knows it was a far away. The hotels for the Republican delegation are way far away. Nobody cares because they're like, you know what? We want to, make sure we're here for Trump after what he went through to show our support for him. So, like I said, I was just hearing a much more unified message, even from some Republicans who, I think would have been voting for somebody other than Trump at one point in the Republican Party. But now they're all behind him.
Yeah. I know you've got a piece out over the Houston Chronicle, some of the key Texas moments from past Republican national conventions. You have any favorites that you just want to preview for the folks out there?
One of my favorites will always be George H.W. Bush. It's funny the way conventions kind of work. Typically we know who the running mate is before they start, or at least in this case, close to when it was starting, this time with J.D. Vance. But, in George H.W. Bush's, case, he didn't know he was going to be a VP nominee. He had no clue. It was a last-minute deal, and Ronald Reagan calls him at the last minute during the convention week, say, hey, you're going to be the VP. He's like, oh, okay. In his memoir, he said, nobody was more surprised than I was, which is a great, classic George H.W. Bush, right? That's one of my favorite ones. And another one that was great to me was Ron Paul. If you remember, during the 2012 campaign, he was kind of a pain in the butt to the Mitt Romney campaign for the longest time. The Mitt Romney people said, okay, we'll give him some sort of slate or some sort of speaking spot. But Ron Paul refused to, give up on his ideals. Yeah. And so his speech wasn't going to be pro Mitt Romney enough. So he ended up saying, look, I'm not going to say that stuff. I'm just not going to go at all. So he just skipped the convention completely. And they replaced Ron Paul with a video message of just, it was kind of almost like a movie that was a tribute to the Ron Paul revolution. And that was it. Wow. So it was kind of crazy. So there's a lot of fun stuff in there, and you'll find a John Connolly reference in there. I love, old John Connolly, the former governor who had switched from Democrat to Republican, and he had this big moment in the 1970s to really kind of win over the audience. And let's just say he didn't pull it off.
Yeah. So back to Abbott real quick. And of course, I mean, we've those of us who delve into the political arena, we've all heard the chatter, the talk that Abbott wants to, maybe run for president, higher office at some point. This tonight, and as he said, this is a big stage for Abbott. If he knocks it out of the ballpark tonight, I mean, this could lift his profile even larger than it already is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big deal. These conventions, I know, look, it can be overplayed sometimes, but man, you really have a chance to make your mark in a way and have other people see who you are. It's kind of weird. Outside of Texas, Abbott was really an unknown quantity, really just a couple of years ago. It's just really recently that other people in other states are going, hey, who's that guy? The border guy, and they're just now knowing, who he is. And I think he's been doing a little bit more national media. He's been doing a little bit more on the national stage recently. He gave that speech in New York earlier this year. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think, I'm not saying he's going to run for president, but you got to start putting see if there's a chance or if there's a lane there. There's obviously a lot of people who want to be the next president after Trump or after Biden. But I think this is where the jockeying really kind of starts. Remember, whoever wins this in November is only going to be president for another 4 years. Yeah. That means the next, group of candidates have to have their house in order in 2 years in order to run for president. Yeah. So if you're not thinking about building an operation and seeing what people think of you now, you're not going to do it. It's like, if you're going to even give it a shot, if he's even going to listen to the possibility, this is where he needs to say something, start making the move, start letting people in other delegations, I'm looking at you, Iowa, New Hampshire, making sure you're making those contacts, because you can't win a Republican Party nomination without going through Iowa and New Hampshire still. Yeah. And so I think that's where he finally gets to tell these people, who is Greg Abbott? What have I done on the border? Where did I come from? And why am I here?
Yeah, very good. Jeremy Wallace, Houston Chronicle.com. Appreciate you as always. And we may talk to you before the week is over and just to kind of wrap everything up.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, Chad. I always like being on the show.
Anytime. Jeremy Wallace, you can find him on X at Jeremy Wallace. That's you can find him, Jeremy S. Wallace on the X. You can follow him and check out that latest out of Houston Chronicle, some of his favorite Texas RNC moments from the past. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Thursday edition Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show from Milwaukee. Donald Trump will be accepting officially the Republican nomination. We'll have Don Jr. on with us, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. And Buck, what in the world will we expect to see from Trump?
The big speech tonight, Donald Trump setting the agenda not just for the conclusion of the RNC and the rest of his campaign, but for many, the future of the country. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Thanks again to Jeremy Wallace for joining us. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. How about this? President Biden testing positive for COVID. Biden testing positive for COVID, the White House says. Biden presented Wednesday afternoon with upper respiratory symptoms. How could they tell? He has tested positive for COVID-19 following his first event in Las Vegas. Cody's vaccinated and boosted. He's experiencing mild symptoms. The White House statement said he'll be returning. Well, thank goodness he's boosted and vaccinated. I mean, who knows what would happen if he wasn't vaccinated and boosted? He'd probably get COVID. He'll be returning to Delaware where he will self-isolate and will continue to carry out his duties during that time. The White House will provide regular updates on the president's status as he continues to carry out the full duties of office while in isolation. So that is the latest out of Fox News on Biden, which, again, what was interesting is that there was a story out earlier today that Biden would step aside if a condition came up. Now, I don't know if COVID is a condition that he would step aside off of the ticket for, but very interesting. Let's see some more text messages that have come in. Chad, they're not going to fire anybody in the administration because the people in the administration are doing exactly what the Biden team wants done. We see it as a failure. They see it as an uproarious success. That from Bud. Another texter, can Trump dismantle the FBI, CIA, and Secret Service? Another texter. Let's see. Hey, Chatty Nick, it's Elizabeth. And Lubbock emojis are modern hieroglyphics, right? They're pictures that are worth 1,000 words. My favorite emoji depends upon the context. The most used are the sparkling star, the praying hands, the thinking smiley, the stars and stripes, and the heart smiley face. I have noticed that the emojis I receive most often depend on who sends the message. Different people have their favorites. I can often tell who sent the text or message by looking at the distribution of emojis. They're kind of a signature, aren't they? That from Elizabeth, who put the little winky face at the end of that. We're getting a lot more text messages with emojis today. Thanks to Nick. See, more text coming in. We're on the same wavelength. I've thought for years that some of the unexplained circumstances in many of these shootings. I wonder if the autopsies revealed any mind-altering drugs or other signs that others could have been controlling the shooter. Good question. 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Another story out today that Joe Biden, he wants to ban the AR-15. He's back out saying that now on the campaign trail, or at least in isolation, that he wants to, if you want to stand against violence, this is what he told the NAACP. if you want to stand against violence, then you should join with him to ban the AR-15. You know, that was the rifle, of course, used by the would-be assassin. And I was wondering exactly how long it would take for Democrats to pivot to gun control. That if we would just ban the AR-15, then there would this guy never would have been able to take a shot at the former president, which, you know, I guess is true. In the same vein, I guess we need to outlaw assassinations. Can we do that? Since apparently, I guess, are assassinations legal because the guy didn't care about that law. What about murder? Is murder legal, illegal? No, he didn't care about that law. So we're going to go ahead and assume that he's going to care about another law that bans the AR-15 and not go and get another rifle and attempt to take that shot with another rifle. Again, for the left, it's all about the end game, which is control. They will use any excuse they can to get their hands on their hands on weapons. When we come back, we'll give you an update on the what's known about this shooter. There are a few more aggravating details that we know about. We'll get into that, your phone calls, your text, and more when we return.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.
Go.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. And you can weigh in on any of the topics, anything that we've gotten into today on the program. And let's see, kind of going through some of the text messages here. Jim in Lubbock. Trump got Benghazi. They got to keep Biden away from the mic. You could hear Kamala gritting her teeth when she called the fireman a hero today. Another texter. Howdy, Chad. Any idea what time Vance is scheduled tonight? Well, yes, I do. Let's see. So the speaker lineup tonight. And we'll start after 7 p.m. You know. At 7:02, Governor Greg Abbott is scheduled to address the convention. So, yeah, right around 7:02 is when he is supposed to speak. Governor Doug Burgum at 7:16. Kellyanne Conway at about 7:28. Kimberly Guilfoyle at 7:46. Kind of going through here. Kai Trump, daughter of Donald Trump Jr., at 9 p.m. At 9:05, Donald Trump Jr. will speak. At 9:27, Usha Vance, the wife of Senator J.D. Vance, will address the RNC. And then at roughly 9:31, these things always run behind, so that's why I say roughly. But roughly 9:31, that's when J.D. Vance is supposed to give his speech. And he'll be the final, obviously, the final speaker of the evening. But you had a lot of the RNC heavy hitters that went yesterday. A lot of the RNC heavy hitters that went yesterday, and I think that many of them did a fine job with their speeches. I thought that Governor Huckabee Sanders, I thought she did great. Thought she was fantastic. I thought that Ben Carson did fine. Marco Rubio had a great speech. Laura Trump, it was a very good speech by Laura Trump. Ron DeSantis really got the crowd going, really hyped up everybody. You could tell he probably had one of the lines of the night when he talked about it. Now we need to put a stop to this weekend at Bernie's administration, which that was pretty good. That was pretty good. Nikki Haley, she when she first got up there to speak, boy, the crowd was not very receptive to Nikki Haley. But I think she kind of won the crowd over, reminding them that Trump had invited her to speak about unity. And she really did a good job of addressing the audience that she needed to address. And that audience, I'll say this, the audience that she needed to address, they weren't in that audience. They were not at the RNC. They were not in Milwaukee. The audience that she needed to speak to, and I thought she did a good job if they were watching, was the hesitant Trump voter, the hesitant Republican, the Republican who is just, he's mean. I don't know if I can vote for the guy. I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to vote for Joe, but I don't know if I want to vote for Trump. I'm just on the fence. That person. And there are a lot of Republicans out there who are like that. They're not on board yet. They're not rallying behind the unity that we're seeing at the convention. And that's why I say she did a fine job. For doing what she needed to do and addressing the crowd that she needed to address. I thought she did fantastic. Now, one of the other really, really good speakers last night was Madeleine Braham. Now, I think I'm saying her name right. She's the mother of the Afghanistan war vet who was murdered in New York City. And boy, she really let the Democrats have it. She really went after Alvin Bragg and the Democrats for being soft on crime and abandoning not only her, but minorities across the United States. And I thought she did a fantastic job in her speech. In fact, all the families who got up to speak did a great job. I mean, you could tell that people were moved by their speeches. You could tell that, especially for a lot of women out there. And I noticed the camera zoomed in on a lot of the female delegates when you had Ann Fundner, who got up to speak about her son, who had died of fentanyl. He was poisoned by fentanyl, and you could just tell the amount of moms and grandmothers that were in the audience who were just tearing up. And I don't know how she, the Ann, I don't know how she held it together. She did amazing. But these everyday average people who got up to speak, I'm telling you, most of them, if you take by the percentage, they've been much better speakers than the politicians. Just because you kind of know what you're going to get from the politicians. You already know what you're in for when you have some of these politicos who get up there to speak. But when you get these average people whose lives have been affected and impacted by the failed Biden policies, I think it really hits home for a lot of folks. You know, they're telling their story. They are telling their family's story, and that connects to a lot of people. If people are watching, and I think a lot of people are watching this convention more so than conventions of the past. 806-680-2790. But yeah, again, if you're interested in J.D. Vance and hearing what he has to say, and let me tell you something. If you follow me on X, I retweeted, re-X'd, whatever we call it these days. I sent out a video, and it was from 7 years ago of J.D. Vance. Wasn't elected to anything, not an elected official. He had just written his book, had just gotten married, had a kid on the way, and he was being interviewed by Megyn Kelly. And this is when he had just sort of burst out onto the scene. And it is if you want to get kind of it's an excellent interview by Megyn Kelly. And if you want to get kind of a primer on who J.D. Vance is and why he's going to appeal to a lot of people in the Rust Belt, why he's going to appeal to a lot of people who were not born with the silver spoon, if you will. He's going to appeal to a very, very large crowd, I think. And you can go and you can watch that interview again. I sent that out just before the show today. And I would encourage you to watch it because let me tell you something. It is, it really shows who he is. Before he ran for office, you can kind of tell there's an inkling there that he's going to run. Again, this is 7 years ago. You can kind of tell it's there. It's percolating. And even Megyn Kelly knows that it's there. But if you want to know a little bit about him, if you haven't read his book, if you just want to get his background, he told the story. And again, I won't go into all the details or everything else, but he had to get away from his mom. His mom was hooked on drugs, and at one point, they were in the car. Okay, his mom and a very young JD, and she tells him, you know what? She's pressing the pedal, speeding, and going, I'm just going to kill both of us. She looks at her son and says this, I'm going to kill both of us. He opens the door and jumps out of the car. Out of a moving, this is a little kid, and he jumps out of the car. And, the mom's taken away in handcuffs and all this kind of stuff. But, I mean, that's the story that you get from J.D. Smith. That's where he came from, was a mom who was hooked on drugs, a dad who was out of the picture. Very, very poor family. And he's, now nominated to be the vice president. I mean, just an amazing story. And so you can, and I'm sure he'll talk about it tonight. But if you want to know a little bit more beforehand, you can go and watch that video. 806-680-2790. When we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at KFYO.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Thursday edition Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show from Milwaukee. Donald Trump will be accepting officially the Republican nomination. We'll have Don Jr. on with us, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. And Buck, what in the world will we expect to see from Trump?
The big speech tonight, Donald Trump setting the agenda not just for the conclusion of the RNC and the rest of his campaign, but for many, the future of the country. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Just some of the latest on this accused or this would-be assassin that we're learning today. And again, the more details that come out, just again the more unexplainable this really is. Fox News with one headline about it. Secret Service continues to face questions as FBI investigates the Trump shooter. The would-be assassin was ID'd as suspicious over an hour before the shooting. The gunman who attempted to assassinate the former president on Saturday was identified as suspicious by law enforcement more than an hour before he opened fire. Senator John Barrasso told Fox News after a briefing between Senate lawmakers and the U.S. Secret Service, quote, he was identified as a character of suspicion because he had a rangefinder as well as a backpack. This was over an hour before the shooting actually occurred. So you would think over the course of an hour, you shouldn't lose sight of that individual. Somebody ought to be following up on those sort of things. No evidence that happened at all. The Secret Service was aware of the threat before Trump walked on stage and narrowly survived an assassination attempt. And again, how do you let the guy on stage? Secret Service agent in charge of security for the event was on the phone with local and state police about the threat while the shooting took place. Barrasso said there was no talk of reports that local officers engaged with the shooter before he opened fire. Barrasso called for the U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle to resign. Marshal Blackburn of Tennessee, who also took part in the briefing with the Secret Service and the FBI, said she was appalled to learn the Secret Service knew about the threat prior to Trump walking on stage. Quote, I have no confidence in the leadership of Director Cheadle and believe that the best interest of our nation is if she steps down from her position. The Secret Service did not apply for waivers to fly drones over the Trump rally. That has come out as well. Now, you've got Senator McConnell's come out, said there needs to be new leadership at the Secret Service. You haven't seen a lot of Democrats coming out for this. You haven't seen a lot of Democrats coming out in favor of a new Secret Service director, not that I've seen. What also came out today is that the parents of the would-be assassin contacted police at least an hour before the shooting and said that they're, basically confirmed, or they were concerned that their son was missing. Again, you add all of this up, and it just does not make any sense whatsoever in the way of it being a mistake. You just can't. You cannot. As I said yesterday, I think it was Lee who had called in yesterday. You wouldn't believe this if you were at a movie. If you were to leave the movie theater knowing everything we know right now, you'd walk away and go, come on. There's no way that happens. There's just no way. Charlie weighing in says, I'd like Congress to subpoena the communications, Secret Service snipers from 30 minutes before the shooting and 30 minutes after the shooting, not just the transcripts, the actual audio. Well, I'm sure they'll say no to that for national security reasons. Chad, you're spot on, my man. I saw those average everyday citizens get up there and then tell their stories. As a grown man, my eyes started leaking, especially when Rachel Marin's brother got up there. That was stout. Yeah. Very, very impactful stories last night, that's for sure. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder cattle auctions were mixed, reporting prices $3 lower, but one barn was $4 higher. Cattle futures were mixed. August live cattle futures up $1.61, closed at $184.28. August feeder cattle futures down 7 cents, closed at $258.55. July cotton futures are up, closed at $71.12. July wheat futures up a dime to close at $5.60 a bushel. July corn up 3 pennies to close at $3.98, and July soybean futures up 7 cents, closed at $10.97 a bushel. July soybean meal futures up $3.70, closing at $339.10 per ton. July class 3 milk futures up a penny to close at $19.80 a hundred. August crude oil futures up $2 and a nickel, trading at $82.89 per barrel. And the Dow Jones is up again today, 243 points, closed at 41,198, another record. And that's market roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. Sold.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
All right, back on the Chad Hasty Show. So earlier today, the Biden campaign sent, I guess, an invite to the Trump-Vance campaign saying, hey, we'd like to have a vice presidential debate on, I think they said August 12th. There was response from the Trump folks, in which, I mean, they're 100% right on this. They're not avoiding anybody, that's for sure. The Trump folks sent back a message saying, quote, we don't know who the Democrat nominee for vice president is going to be, so we can't lock in a date before their convention. To do so would be unfair to Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Gretchen Whitmire, or whoever Kamala Harris picks as her running mate. Now, if you watch the convention last night, there were a lot of Republicans who took shots at Kamala Harris. And as much as I would like Joe to stay in the race, because polling is just not looking good for him at all, it is looking more and more likely that they are absolutely going to toss this guy over. ABC News reporting that Chuck Schumer has told Joe Biden privately that it would be best to end his presidential bid. ABC News reported this evening, Schumer, quote, forcefully made the case it would be better for Biden, better for the Democrat Party, and better for the nation if he were to bow out. That from Jonathan Karl while reporting from the RNC. Karl said there's been no denial from Schumer's camp. The senator's office has only said Leader Schumer conveyed the views of his caucus. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has made similar statements, quote, directly to the president. This after polling now shows that 2/3 of Democrats want Joe to bow out. Schumer and Jeffries also pushing to delay the Biden nomination vote. This from Axios. The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries collaborated to delay the process for formalizing Biden as the Democrat nominee. A signal that congressional leaders sympathize with the rank-and-file Democrats who want more time to address concerns about Biden's ability to defeat Trump. The Democrat National Committee said Wednesday that they will not hold their virtual roll call vote before August, providing that critical room. Axios reporting that Schumer and Jeffries spoke and agreed to push back against a virtual roll call in July. Dozens of rank-and-file Democrats have signed on to a letter urging the DNC not to hold an early virtual roll call vote. Representative Jared Huffman, Democrat out of California, the organizer of the letter, touted the DNC's delay as a victory while adding, we'll continue to see how this evolves. Adam Schiff was another Democrat lawmaker who came out on Wednesday urging Biden to pass the torch. So this thing's not done. It's not anywhere close to being done. And the more that Republicans look unified and look as though they're wanting unity in America, I'm telling you, the more freaked out the Democrats are getting. I saw a piece on CNN last night. Now, again, we're a long ways away. A lot could happen. And if Joe drops out of this thing, who knows what's going to happen. But they were on CNN last night. They were talking about Trump getting up to and maybe surpassing 330 electoral votes. That the polling is leaning so heavy in Trump's direction in these individual states that it is beginning to be a rout. And the Democrats are absolutely freaking out about that. But you got to remember this. They will absolutely throw Joe overboard. Their hatred of Trump, their obsession to win and defeat Trump and to defeat the Republicans will absolutely outweigh any allegiance they have towards Joe Biden. They will throw Joe over as quickly as possible if they truly believe they're going to lose it all. 806-680-2790. Charlie weighing in. Cheeto won't resign, and her boss, Mayorkas, agree 1,000% she should be fired, but Biden won't do it. No, he won't. I'm done. Joe Biden would actually extend some goodwill if he did fire her, but he won't do it. Yeah, she's one of Joe Biden's favorites. Another texter weighs in with, well, that's how she got the job. You know, that's how she got it. John weighing in, Saturday's assassination attempt on Trump and everything that we've heard since says two things are possible. One, the shooter is someone's puppet. Two, the Secret Service is going to dance around and create theater for a while, and no one will really be held to account for anything. Well, and listen, when it comes down to the government investigating themselves, that's typically what happens, right? Is that we really don't get any answers. And the government just hopes that everybody will move on and focus on something else. Another texter. Let's see. Joe has 35% approval rating. The same number wants him to stay in the race. What does that 35% see in Joe? They're probably, it's blind loyalty, I'm guessing. That's about it. Kim weighing in, saying they're claiming that Joe has COVID, will not be speaking tonight at the Latino convention he was scheduled at. Looks like he needs 5 or 6 day rest. Do we really believe he's got COVID? Well, it wouldn't surprise me. It really, I'm absolutely believing that he has COVID. Absolutely. It's not a good look for him either way. I mean, the guy, he's not afraid to speak at the Latino event. He spoke at the NAACP the other day. He probably has COVID, and he's gonna go hide for a while, stay out of the spotlight, try to get people, get some Democrats to maybe stop piling on, or maybe this is his way out. Again, there was a report earlier that said if Joe had a medical condition, then he would maybe step aside. So maybe this is his way of getting out and saving face. Who knows? But again, I think Joe he's someone who is not putting the country first. He's not going to put the Democrats first. He is someone who is only in this for himself and his family and enriching his family. And it is a fight to the end right now between Joe just demanding to stay into this thing and many, many forces within the Democrat Party wanting him out. 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Let me tell you, Joe better watch himself if the Clintons get involved. That's all I'm saying. Better watch out. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Thursday edition Clay Travis, Buck Sexton show from Milwaukee. Donald Trump will be accepting officially the Republican nomination. We'll have Don Jr. on with us, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, and Buck, what in the world will we expect to see from Trump?
The big speech tonight, Donald Trump setting the agenda not just for the conclusion of the RNC and the rest of his campaign, but for many, the future of the country. We'll talk about it on Clay and Buck.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right. Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Uh-oh. Headline of the Daily Beast, rambling Biden gets nasty with Bronze Star Democrat on a Zoom call. Well, you know Joe doesn't know how to operate the Zoom calls. He's probably frustrated by the technology. Joe got nasty at times in a tense meeting with dozens of moderate Democrat lawmakers who called his viability on the presidential ticket into question on Saturday. Among them was Representative Jason Crow, Democrat out of Colorado, a former Army Ranger who served three tours in the Middle East, who found himself on the brunt end of a personal attack from Biden after he asked about the importance of national security to voters in November. The president said, quote, "First of all, I think you're dead wrong on national security. You saw what happened recently in terms of the meeting we had with NATO. I put NATO together. Name me a foreign leader who thinks I'm not the most effective leader in the world on foreign policy. Tell me who the hell that is." To which probably everyone on the call muted themselves and started laughing. Hey, you tell me who the hell it is. Hey, Sprinkles ice cream. Biden then got personal with Crow. Tell me something you ever done with your Bronze Star like my son. Crow reportedly remained calm, telling Biden it's not breaking through, Mr. President, to our voters. Well, you ought to talk about it, Biden shot back. On national security, nobody's been a better president than I've been. Name me one. Hey, Sonny. This guy's just, he's an angry, confused old man. If he was anybody else, you kind of feel bad for him. But according to all reports, he's always been very unfriendly. A very unfriendly fellow. Let's go to the phones. And HR in Lubbock. What's going on?
Hey, Chad. How you doing? First, I want to celebrate a long relationship to listening to your show. I'm glad to see you prosper the way you are. we've had one disagreement in all the time I've been listening to you, and that was 9/11. I thought 9/11 was something that happened on purpose. Anyway, let me get to my point.
Yeah.
I was thinking, if they really want Biden, they can do it. You know, before this campaign started in 2020, you remember that they had the police report for that woman that he's supposed to have groped? And there was a police report. They also got Merrick Garland's transcript. I mean, if they really wanted him, how about the Democrats? They've got the vehicle for it. So what is really the play that's going on here?
Wait a minute. Do you mean if they wanted to get rid of him, they could?
Right. They've
sure.
got ammo. They got ammo on him, so there's something else that's got to be going on here.
Well, if it's groping another woman, then Democrat voters aren't going to care about that. Voters aren't going to care about that anyway.
But the media can make a real big thing of it, especially with the police report.
Yeah, I think it's more about slow playing it. I think that you've got a faction of the Democrats. They're trying to be nice about it. They're trying to be, cool, calm, and collected about it. But the media is out for blood on this guy. The Democrats are out for blood. They've got weeks to go. Look, they can't seem too giddy about throwing him over because it would backfire. So
it can't seem obvious is what you mean.
Right, exactly. The play is out there. I mean, how long have I been telling you this is going to happen? That they're going to unless he just, and let me tell you, and again, I don't want this to happen, and I hope I'm wrong. His inner circle of who he trusts better be getting smaller by the day too, because if the deep state wants to take somebody out,
that's exactly right.
Okay, and again, I'm not wishing it. I'm not. God forbid, we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. But let me tell you, if the Democrats really want him out, if the deep state really wants him out, they're going to find a way to get him out of there.
Yeah. Well, again, we're saying the same thing all over again. But anyway, I enjoy your show, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, HR. Appreciate it. Thanks for being out there. All right. Want to thank everybody for tuning in today. You can follow me on social media at Chad HD Radio. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Now people don't believe that he's got COVID. I mean, come on. He got the booster. He got the vaccine. He should be fine. By the way, this is the third time that Biden has had COVID since being vaccinated. So, all right. There you have it. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. God bless you.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.